shared part of the screen that has a nutrition label on it?
Yeah, you're good, Tyler.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. Well, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and get started. If anybody pops in, I'll try and click the button to let them come in. My name is Tyler. My company is Freedom Table. We do nutritional coaching and group workshops. This is our first ever table talk, which I thought would be kind of fun to do, kind of just a 30-minute quick session. Initially, these are going to be focused on food labels, and we've got obviously plenty to talk about with those. We'll try and keep it as close to the content's probably 20 or 25 minutes worth. And if there's a few minutes at the end, or if you want to stick around, we can ask a couple of questions at the end. But otherwise, we will go ahead and get started. I think I'm going to be able to draw on this screen. If not, I might have to flip back and forth, but we'll see how it goes. So the first thing is, when you go to buy something at the store, do you flip the label around and see the nutritional label? I have pictures of these. I know you're not going to be able to see this, but flip it around and look at the label. Maybe you look at the calories and stop there, or maybe you just don't even know what you're looking at. If you are completely confused when you see food labels like that, then you're in the right spot. We're going to break it down. So just to establish some purpose here, most people are glancing at a label. You might see the calories, you might see something else that you thought you were looking for, like sugar, and maybe that's it, and you just kind of stop reading. We're going to establish the basics of the nutritional fact panel or the food label, kind of some interchangeable terms there, so that you can understand what you're eating, spot some common tricks, and start to take control of your health through informed decisions. By the end of today's session, I want you to have an established familiarity with the panel's layout. We're going to understand the serving sizes, calories, and the big three nutrients on a surface level. And then we'll get into more of these, and we're going to get into specifics over the next couple of weeks. So labels on food products are governed by laws and regulations. That's why they all look the same. They have to be presented in the same order and the same layout, and really no matter the product. So much so that the font type and the font size is all regulated by laws and enforced by the FDA. So top to bottom, I'm going to try and draw on this thing for the first time. We've got our servings. Can you see a couple of green lines? Oh, what? They go away? Okay, we'll just use so top to bottom, we've got the servings and the servings in the container and the serving size, the calories, and they're all going to be laid out the same. The next section is nutrients, and then under that is going to be vitamins. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the percentage of the daily value that they've assigned to it. The percent daily value is also another thing that is standardized by law. Everything on the food label is based on the serving size. So the easiest way to think about it is, if you eat that amount of volume of food, whatever that is, grams, tablespoons, cups, whatever it is, the nutritional values that follow are for intaking that quantity of that product. The serving size is setting the stage for what is to come below it. And there's a lot of shenanigans that go on with serving size that we're going to get into. And it's very critical to pay attention to the serving size with stuff that you're going to see here shortly. So we need to note that serving size does not mean that's what you should eat or what you can eat. The serving size is manipulated in order to be able to say other things about the product that they want to be able to say. So the next time you're at the grocery store, if you go, kind of the most glaring example of this is potato chips. If you go down the potato chip aisle and you turn over 50 or 100 bags of potato chips, almost every single one of them is going to have 150 calories per serving. Might be 140, it might be 160, but they're all going to be right there, about 150 calories per serving. The trick is that the serving size changes so that the calories can stay in that kind of industry standard. They don't want to stand out as having a higher calorie chip or being a higher calorie option. So they adjust the serving size to reflect and be able to stay in that 150-ish calories per serving range. One of those might say that's a serving size is 10 chips. Another one might be 35 or 50 goldfish, but they're all going to be 150 calories per serving, and they manipulate the serving size to reflect that so they stay in line with everybody else. So the quick tip there is to check how much the serving is first. It's at the top. It's a great place to start. Just to reiterate, the serving size is not what you should be eating. It is just a way to break down the entire container, the entire package of food, so that the rest of the numbers are manageable. Like if you were looking at this one in particular that's on the screen, this is I think this was for honey. So they don't want to put that it's 16 times 60 amount of calories, because they're making you do the math. They're going ahead and splitting it up and putting it into a serving size that they feel like is appropriate to be able to do what they want and break it out into a relatively manageable portion. So a lot of shenanigans happens with there, but we're going to move on into the calories. The calories shown are going to be the next thing. It's going to be big and bold right at the front. It's definitely one of the most important things that you need to keep track of. Simply put, calories are the energy that your body uses for fuel to do all kinds of processes inside your body, to digest food, to operate its internal systems, to move your body, to think and breathe and all those things. Calories are the fuel that powers all of that. It's kind of like money in a bank. Every time that you eat, you're making a deposit, and every time that you move or your body is doing something, you're making a withdrawal. If you eat more than you spend, and you're saving the extra, it's going to show up on your body as body fat. If you spend more than you eat, if you're moving and your body is doing more processing than the fuel it has to resort to its saved energy sources, which is in the form of body fat on your body. Calories are not inherently bad. They're just information. So generally speaking, women should be eating somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day, and men generally 2,000 to 2,500 calories per day to be maintaining a healthy body weight. Of course, there's some some variance with that depending on what you're trying to do and what your goals are and your age and your height and weight and all that stuff that you're starting at. For the sake of this session and in the simplest terms possible, if you're eating more than you should, your body is storing that in the form of body fat. If you're eating less than you need, your body is going to resort to burning body fat for fuel to be able to do what it needs to do. So calories are pretty straightforward. There are going to be, let me see, how do I scroll down on this? There we go. So again, according to law, there are 5 things that are going to have to be in bold, and they have to be on all food labels. That's going to be total fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates, and protein. Up until 1972, food products did not have to have any labeling or any information on them as far as what was included or what was being provided. Throughout the 70s and 80s, medical research advanced quite greatly, and they started realizing we need to be able to tell people what's in this food and what kind of nutritional value it has. So they started implementing food labels. And then because of all that research, things like cholesterol and sodium were getting linked to a lot of health issues. And so they instituted in the 90s, early 90s, that cholesterol and sodium needed to be included on the list also. That change in the early 90s is pretty similar to the change that we've had up until that point. The only real difference that's kind of noteworthy is on some products that are kind of odd, or I don't know how to say it. On some products, they are now required to show a per serving column and a per container column on the thing. And that's really the only major change in the last 30 or so years. The other 3 that we want to talk about are going to be total fat, total carbohydrate, and protein. These are absolutely the most important 3 things that you need to focus on when it comes to healthy eating. They're often called the macronutrients or your macros. And they're going to be definitely the biggest impact when you control those three variables. We'll start with fats. Fats are at the top. That's a good place to start. Placement here is important because of two kind of opposing reasons. Your body needs to intake fat in order to survive. It's like oil in your car. You will break down if you do not have fat in your system. However, too much fat gets directly put onto your frame as body fat if it's not being used. So the ratio of fat that is being intake is very important. You need it, absolutely need it. Women, especially more than men for hormone regulation, but everybody needs to be intaking fat. If you don't eat fat, you're going to start having some problems. But too much of it gets directly put onto your frame. So if you've ever heard anybody mention healthy fats, then you'll understand why this category is broken down as a total fat with a couple of subcategories. The subcategories are trans fat. Trans fats have largely, if not completely, been banned in the United States. However, the labels in a lot of cases will still show them, and it'll still be listed there, but it'll all say 0. Like I said, trans fats have been banned pretty much across the board. So the other two that you will possibly see, this shows one of them, is saturated fat. The other is unsaturated fat. Now, there's good fats and bad fats. You may have heard that before also. And there's various types in each of those, like polyunsaturated or mono, this or that or the other. All you're really looking for is saturated or unsaturated. And the way to tell the difference on what is a good fat and a bad fat is pretty simple. You can think about it like this. Saturated means it sat right on your belly. That's the bad one. We don't want that one. Unsaturated are healthy fats, like the fat that you get from an avocado or nuts or nut butter and those kind of things. Unsaturated fats are good. Saturated fats sat right on your belly, not the good ones. So carbohydrates, similar to fats, are listed as a total category because they have a couple of sections below. Total carbohydrates, let's see. There are a few different forms that carbohydrates come in. There's actual carbohydrates, and then there's dietary fiber, which is also considered a carbohydrate, but dietary fiber is a good thing to have. Helps with your digestion, your bowel movements, and things like that. And then you're going to see sugars. Sugar is also a form of a carbohydrate. Some things have natural sugar content, like fruit and milk and some things like that have a naturally occurring sugar. Then, and a lot of times you'll see added sugar. That you can think of as quite literally added. They are adding sugar to that product directly. It is not something that naturally occurred in whatever the product is. They have added that in some form. We're going to talk a lot about sugar at some point in the future, probably several sessions, because there's a lot that goes into sugar and a lot of people that are very interested in cutting back on their sugar intake. So we're going to go through that more in depth, definitely in the future. As far as right now, products do have sugar in them. It can be naturally occurring, and that's what's going to be listed out as just kind of a total sugar or just sugars. If it is sugar that they added to the product, it has to say added sugar. So just because something doesn't have added sugars doesn't mean that it can't have a lot of sugar. Moving on to the protein. The protein category is it's also in bold. It's at the bottom of the screen right above that big black bar. It's a very easy place to find, and it's going to be one of, if not the most important categories that you need to look at when you're looking at a food label. Protein you can get is critical to a healthy diet. It doesn't just come from meat. Wheat and dairy products also have protein, and there's about 16 different types of proteins that our body needs and uses for different things, which is why it's important to have a balanced and diversified diet to make sure that you're kind of getting at some point in the days and weeks a broad spray of all of those different types of proteins. Meat covers a lot of them. Dairy and wheat cover also a good handful. So if you're just eating a balanced and diversified diet, then you're going to be covering your bases and you don't really need to worry about it. So we do have a little cheat code. I've got some Tyson chicken nuggets here. We can see there's, we learned about serving size, about calories. Here's a couple of those other variations of fats, polyunsaturated. It doesn't matter what's in front of it. Unsaturated, that's okay. Mono unsaturated, also okay. Carbohydrates, we've got a little fiber here, no sugar, and then they'll make sure to call out, they don't have to put this if it's a 0, but for some reason they wanted to, that it does not have any added sugar. And then we have our protein of 11 grams. So the easiest way to tell if you're eating, how do I say this? Eating protein that it comes from a good source is very important because it'll help you get most of those 16 different types of protein covered. So how to tell if your food that you're going to be eating is a good source of protein, the easiest way to do it, and this applies pretty much across the board, it is a rule of thumb. It is not scientifically based or anything, but it is a very good rule of thumb. We're going to add a 0 to our protein number. So that would make this 11. We would add a 0. That would be 110. That 110 should be pretty close to our total calories. Total calories on this are 210. That's not close at all. Unfortunately, Tyson chicken nuggets would not qualify as a good source of protein. Now, of course, you can still eat these. There may be benefits elsewhere. But as far as considering this a good source of protein, we're going to say no. We're added a 0, 110 is not close to 210 total calories. And so that's not going to be considered a good source of protein. When, for example, you can buy a TV from the Dollar General, probably. You can also buy a TV from Best Buy. You can check the box and say that you do have a TV that you got from Dollar General, but it's probably not a good one. You are going to get protein from these chicken nuggets, but it's probably not the greatest kind. Does that make sense? So you can get a TV from a budget place, and yeah, it's a TV. Like, yeah, this does have protein, but it's definitely not the best source. In this particular instance, you would want to consider that it has a pretty high fat content, but we'll move on from there. So to compare and contrast some real world applications, I found a few things that were right next to each other on the shelf at the store. So in this example, Walmart brand bow tie pasta, we're going to look at a few things here to show the differences in a product that has, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. It has the exact same ingredients as the next one, and it has in the same order, in the same quantity, and a lot of things are the same on this. We're going to point out and really look at the serving sizes to tell. So these bow tie noodles, our serving size is 1 1/4 cups or 56 grams. If we eat that much pasta, and that's a dry weight, so that's before cooking, this is the nutritional value that we will get from it: 200 calories, a gram of fat, 42 carbs, 7 grams of protein, because wheat does include protein. So knowing that, and then we're going to scroll down and look at one that was right next to it. Penne noodles, same exact ingredients, right next to each other on the shelf. Our serving size is only 2/3 of a cup. The weight is the same, but the noodles are individually heavier, and the sizing of the noodles themselves is different. So 2/3 of a cup on this compared to 1 1/4 cups on there. But we also have a lot of the same numbers. I put them next to each other here so we can see. So on the left is our bow tie pasta, 1 1/4 cups versus 2/3 of a cup. But then look what we have here. Same calories, same fat, same, all the way down, even down to the vitamin percentages and the ingredients. These are exactly the same product in a different shape, and the amount of them that you could eat is much different due to the size of them, the weight of the individual noodles, things like that. So let's see here. What I did here is the photo on the left is the bow tie pasta. The cup on the left is 56 grams, according to my kitchen scale. The cup on the right is as honest of a 1 1/4 cup measurement that I could get. So again, we have some shenanigans and some tomfoolery going on here with, if this is 56 grams on the left and this is 1 1/4 cups, what are we supposed to do? Same on the right-hand side picture, that's the penne noodles. Not as noticeable of a difference due to the shape of the noodle, but still a significant difference in the quantity of pasta that is actually 56 grams on the scale versus their volumetric measurement of 2/3 of a cup. So again, we have to pay attention to serving sizes and be very aware of how much food we are intaking, because if you, on the bow tie in particular, if you measured that out in a measuring cup versus on a scale, there's potential you're eating twice as much as you think you are. And instead of 200 calories, you might be actually intaking 400 calories. So we'll go down here a little bit further. I found these two as far as another real world example: hamburger helper in the box and a hamburger helper single serve kind of thing you throw in the microwave. The one on the right, the little cup, has freeze-dried beef in it. And the one on the left, of course, is assuming that you would be cooking ground beef and doing it how everybody knows how to make hamburger helper. The hamburger helper, as far as we're not going to get in the weeds on this. This is just to show you an illustration of some of the confusion that is being done on the food labels as far as serving sizes. The hamburger helper in a box includes 4.5 servings per container. I don't know who's getting shorted a serving or a half a serving, or who's eating an extra half a serving, but there's 4.5. The serving size is listed out as 1/3 of a cup as packaged. That's it's essentially a box of macaroni noodles with a seasoning packet. It's 1 cup if you prepare it as directed, which includes water, milk to kind of cream up the sauce, and of course the ground beef. Now, because of that, they're offering 2 different columns. One column is showing our nutritional information as packaged. 130 calories. This is, if you are 37 grams here for 1/3 of a cup. I did the math. You don't have to worry about it. That is almost equal to 200 calories if you get it up to a 56 gram weight. Again, keeping their serving size portions around the same as their competitors. So pretty much all pasta is going to be somewhere around 200 calories per serving. This is the same, no different here. So we've got our nutritional values going down. And then as prepared, they have it here, which includes the other things that it calls for on the back of the box, like the ground beef and the milk in particular. So let me see. I wonder if I stop sharing. So on this one, the boxed hamburger helper, it is calling for 1 pound of lean ground beef. There are probably 10 different versions of lean ground beef that you can get that would range widely in calories and in nutritional value. If you got a 93.7 ground beef versus a 90.10, maybe you would consider even an 85.15 as being lean ground beef. They don't give us any other instruction here. They just say 1 pound of lean ground beef. But we saw on the label on the right-hand side, they do have something that they have tested it with, because they know, and they came up with a caloric value and a nutritional fact sheet if you do it as prepared. But nowhere on this box does it direct us what lean ground beef actually is. It also says that you need 1 cup of milk. There are probably, 30 different kinds of milk: skim milk, low fat, 2%, whole milk, almond milk, whatever, that you could use to do that. And all of those would pretty widely change your calorie intake based on what you put in. So essentially, get this pulled back up here. So in essence, their prepared column here is almost worthless, because they don't know what we actually used to put it together. Last little thing to touch on here is the microwavable cup of the hamburger helper, which, just for the record, sounds terrible, and I'm going to return it. But the nutritional facts on this, our serving size is one whole package, which is 57 grams. If you recall, our bow tie pasta and penne were also 56 grams, 56, I think. And look at our calories, right around 210 calories. They are trying to keep that around a equivalent number so that they don't stand out as being a higher calorie option. So that is portioned appropriately to be able, even as a one serving size, eat the whole thing container, to fit into that mold that they want to try and stay in. And then we've got, of course, our fat and carbs and protein listed. And so that was on the hamburger helper. So that was our real life examples. Now that we've known and we've kind of learned about the general layout of the nutritional label, I do hope that you'll tune in next week for another session. We're going to be talking about serving size and front of the box advertising and how those two correlate more in depth next week. We've got some pretty good examples on how the corporations are essentially treating you like a puppet with front of the box advertising versus what they're actually doing on the back of the food label. And so if you are ready to take the next step towards improving your health through food, I would love to talk to you. Freedom Table has one-on-one coaching as well as group sessions. If you have a small group or your workplace or any kind of group setting that you're around, we do custom tailored group presentations on a variety of topics. And most of all, I would love to hear if you compare anything at the store this week, what you find. So I would say thank you, everybody. We are right at 7:30, but if anybody wants to stick around with any